There's always this interesting moment where we're about to celebrate Christmas, but not yet. And for some people, it's sooner than others. For others, maybe it's year-round. And so I went to the scriptures and I started wondering, is there any nuance just before the coming of Jesus that would be helpful to us? And I was thinking about something that was just a short ramp up to the coming of Christ. And so I went to the genealogies that are not usually scintillating reading. They're not where you go to each week to be inspired or to have some kind of breakthrough thought or idea. And then I found this particular verse in the genealogies written by Matthew in chapter 1, verse 17. And Matthew wrote these words: "Thus, there were 14 generations in all from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the exile to Babylon, and 14 from the exile to the Messiah." That those short phrases may not seem to have great meaning to us, but in this one verse, we are reminded by God that so many things that we want to see happen quickly take time. I hope when you leave here today that 14 will evoke an insight to your life that you will never forget. Because the moment I read this, 14 took new meaning to me. 14 is the time in between the beginning and the fulfillment. 14 is the time in between the pilgrimage and the promise. 14 is the time in between the uncertainty and the certainty, between the mystery and the clarity. 14 is the reminder to me that the things that God is going to do in our lives do not happen quick or fast or instantly. For most of us, the most important reminder that 14 can become is that 14 is the reminder of who you are in the time it will take to become who you're created to be. 14 is the space between the life you have and the life you will have. It's hard to summarize history into one line, into one phrase, and it doesn't surprise me because God is so elegant in everything he does that there just happens to be 14 generations in between. I mean, most of us have a hard time waiting 14 minutes. How many of us have sat at a coffee shop wondering what's taking the barista so long? How many of you have gone through fast food wondering why it's not fast anymore? But it was never food. And it didn't bother you. How many of us have stood in line at the cashier waiting for this incompetent person to move faster so that you can get to the next meaningless thing in your life faster? How many of us measure the importance or the excellence of something by how fast it gets something done for us? You ever hit that expedient shipping, fast shipping, speed shipping, instantaneous shipping, which is exactly the same speed as regular shipping, but you are now paying more to feel better about the speed at which your next item arrives? We've closed the gap. And if there was a number we try to eliminate from our lives, it's that number 14. 14 generations. How many of us are thinking about our lives and the impact we will have 14 generations from now? Most of us are not even thinking about how it will impact the next generation or the generation after that one. And yet God is orchestrating a story so big, so powerful, so extraordinary that it takes leaping across 14 generations for us to see its power and significance. To get to the Messiah, to get to the birth of Jesus, to get to the fulfillment of God's promise to bring the Savior of the world, there had to be 3 sweeping 14s. And as I looked at those sweeping movements, they looked a lot like my life. And I think they look a lot like yours. There are 14 generations in all, from Abraham to David. That's quite a bit of history from Abraham to David. It's the journey from the call to the destiny. From Abraham to David is the journey from your call to your destiny. It is the journey of progress. It's that driving experience in your life where you wonder to yourself, will I ever get there? Have you ever had a sense that God put a calling on your life without over-spiritualizing it? Just this deep sense in your soul that God has invited you on a particular journey, has placed in you a significant mark you're supposed to make in the world. I think sometimes we understate it. In fact, I think sometimes people without God have a higher sense of calling than people with God. But when you're in a relationship with the creator of the universe, you should not be surprised when there's a calling on your life. And I want you to know this, if you're unaware of it, that you have a calling on your life. Now, it doesn't mean that you have the same calling. It doesn't mean that you have my calling. It doesn't mean you have Andy's calling or Brooke's calling. It doesn't mean that our callings are the same. But I want us to understand something, whether our calling is in the space of this spiritual environment we call church, or out in the domain of another space, whether it's in the domain of science or education or entrepreneurship or wherever it may be, your calling is as significant as anyone else's calling. And the part of the journey that God takes us on is that beginning point where Abraham is at, and most of us are at least slightly familiar with him, where God calls Abraham, who was called Abram, to leave everything he knew, to leave the land he was from, to leave the family that had raised him up and given him safety and security, to leave all that was known to him and take his family and begin an entirely new journey, to go to a land he did not know, to be among a people he did not know, and step into a future he could not imagine. And God had to keep giving Abraham these new visions of a future. He said, Abraham, look at the stars in the sky. That's how numerous your generations will be. Abraham, look at the sands on the seashore. That in the desert, that's how many your generations will be. And it was the beginning of the call. And all of us, when we're on the journey that God invites us onto, will always begin with nothing but the call. And that's what makes you feel naked. See, when you begin a journey with God, all you have is the call. You don't have any proof. You don't have any evidence. You may not even have any talent. If you told your friends out loud what God was placing on your heart, they would think you're out of your mind. You think you were a fool. They might think you are so arrogant to believe something significant could be coming to your life. And that's why sometimes it's good to keep the call private. I think Joseph is a good reminder of that. God gave him dreams. They were from God. It wasn't Joseph the narcissist. It was Joseph who heard the voice of God tell him who he was going to become. He made a mistake. He thought the people closest to him would celebrate the incredible call of God on his life. Don't be shocked when you have a call that no one wants you to answer. It took 14 generations to go from Abraham to David, to go from the call to the destiny. 14 generations to move from the story of the person who left everything for nothing except God, to the story of David, who becomes the most powerful king in the history of Israel and establishes a kingdom his son Solomon gets to coast on. Whew. Talk about privilege. to be the son of David. But David began as a shepherd, delivering cheese, killing lions and bears, killing a giant, becoming a warrior, and then became king. 14 generations to get to David. How much time are you willing to give God to take you from your call to your destiny? Man, I don't oftentimes use the language of destiny because it sounds so, I don't know, Hollywood, our destiny. But here's something that is inescapable. You actually do. As much as I don't want to say this, you do have a destiny. And the reason I have a hard time sometimes with the word destiny is because it's related to the word destined, which sounds like you don't have any choice. See, I'm not saying you're destined to something without any action. You have agency, you have choices to make, you have actions to take, you have suffering to take on, sacrifice to choose. It doesn't happen by accident, but you do have a destiny when you're in a relationship with God because He has invited you into a future He imagined for you. So if you have a relationship with Jesus, I know you're destined for certain things. You are destined to be with God forever, no matter how much you mess up this life. In fact, Jesus gives us incredible hints when He says, I've come to give you life and to give you life in abundance. You're destined to live. Now you can slow down the destiny. You can really mess it up. You can just exist. You can just survive. But you are destined to live. Eventually, living will win in your life. And you're destined to live life in abundance. Now, I don't know the full spectrum of that. I don't know how that applies specifically in your life. But I know that Jesus already promised that if you come to Him, you are destined to live a life in abundance. Now, the tricky thing is that we have choices to make, and our self-motivated, self-indulgent, self-destructive choices can limit or deter how fast that abundance comes in our life. But there is a journey, and it may take 14 generations within your own lifetime. How many have already just sat down some days and just taken a deep breath and thought, will I ever get there? God, am I ever going to become the person I want to become? Forget the person other people want me to become. How long, God, will it take for me to be the person I can look in the mirror and respect? Will I ever get there? Have you just put in the work and put in the work and put in the work, and you thought the outcome would come sooner, but it just seems somewhere in the future so elusive. Will I ever get there? I think so much of life is asking that question every single day of your life, realizing that for God, it's the journey that transforms you. We all begin as Abraham, and He wants us all to experience in our lives, in our own particular application, what it means to be David, to journey those 14 generations from the call to the destiny, where you begin to live the life God created you to live. But there is another 14. You'd think one sweeping movement of 14 generations would be enough, but that only got them to David. From Abraham to David. Then he goes another 14, from David to the exile to Babylon. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm really excited about the journey from Abraham to David. I'm not that excited about the journey from David to exile. That's the part of the story that nobody brings up to us. Because I'm convinced we're all on a journey that will take us from call to destiny, but also from abundance to loss. Now, I know it's supposed to be the other way around, right? Follow Jesus, you'll go from loss to abundance. Do what God calls you to do, you'll go from loss to abundance. Be the person God created you to be, you're going to go from loss to abundance. But here, there are 14 generations it took to go from abundance to loss. 14 from David to the exile to Babylon. Because in the same way, when you're in that first 14, it's a journey toward progress to become the person God created you to be. But the journey in the second 14 is a journey of meaning. We do not find meaning in life by what we gain. We find meaning in life by what we lose. It's been said over and over again that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is to get everything you want, so you can realize it's not everything you need. I think a huge part of our lives are this journey toward pursuing the things that will not fulfill us. But I know what it feels like when someone, doesn't it drive you crazy when someone who has like succeeded in what you're trying to succeed in goes, success isn't anything? You ever just get irritated by that? Like when billionaires go, yeah, wealth doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you. Or other people say, oh yeah, if I could do it all over again. You can't. So don't tell me what you do if you did it all over again. Tell me what you did the one time you had, all right? Because everyone says, well, if I could do it all over again, I would spend more time with my kids. Or if I could do it all over again, I would spend more time on my marriage. Or if I could do it all over again, I would spend more time enjoying life. You didn't. So don't talk to me about your reflection after you have everything that I want. See, I think the reality is that we don't discover the meaning of life in the success. And that's what they're really saying. They're not actually saying life with nothing is better than life with everything. What they're saying is that they took nothing with them, they have everything, and nothing is still with them. And they don't know how to get rid of the nothing. Because the wrong things cannot fill your need for meaning. And if the question from call to destiny is, will I ever get there? The question from abundance to loss is, why is this happening to me? Have you asked that question? From David to exile in Babylon. So David is king of Israel when Israel is the most powerful. It becomes wealthier with Solomon, but basically Solomon's kingdom is an extension of David's kingdom. And so really what you're seeing is after 14 generations, you have a pinnacle. You have that moment where you've arrived. You look at David's life and you think, that's where God wants to take us all. And it's almost as if we stop the story there and go from David to Jesus. Because no, there's a huge story, 14. You pay attention to the 14 because there's time in between. And the 14 here is that journey from everything you have to a sense of losing something that mattered more. I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with. In fact, I remember one year I was sitting down with one of my friends, and he's a Jewish atheist or agnostic. And he doesn't believe in Jesus, but he believes in me. And we have a friendship. And one day he asked me to go to lunch, and he said to me, if you want to make the greatest impact or be the most helpful you can be, because he had a whole entourage of friends that were all multimillionaires, he said, 33 of my friends are going through a divorce. And all of them were worth 50 million and up. And none of them, with all the wealth they had, could find enough wisdom to figure out how to keep one relationship healthy. Because by the way, when you can't keep that core relationship healthy, it's not like you have an abundance of healthy relationships. It's not like, oh, my relationships are incredible, except the one person who knows me. That makes me a little nervous that my daughter is laughing so hard over there. And when they lose that person, because they don't just lose that person, they lose the relationship they had with their kids. It's never the same again. They lose the friends that they have as couples. They lose the community they've nurtured and developed together. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's a painful reality we don't talk enough about. That if you spend your life pursuing all the things that make you feel important, you will never find the meaning of your life. And you will lose something that will make you feel as if somebody pulled the rug out from under you. I don't think Israel ever thought they had a bad future coming after David. Do you think someone could sit around with Israel and say, you need to get ready, you're going to lose everything? You go, are you kidding? We've got David, and then we have Solomon. Can you imagine someone coming even to Solomon and to the leaders of Israel and saying, you need to be careful, you're going to lose everything? See, most of us can't see that Babylon is around the corner. But in the blink of an eye, well, at least in God's eyes, because for him, 14 generations passed. 14 became the reminder that you can lose everything. So you need to know what matters. Because if you are holding on to the wrong things when your world collapses, you will lose the things that matter most in your life. And you'll ask that question, why is this happening to me? It was a tragic moment in the story of Israel when Babylon conquered them and decided the best strategy to defuse the Israelites was to disperse them across the world. That's what happened after 14 generations. And that generation couldn't even remember what it was like when David was king. By the way, it doesn't take 14 generations to forget what God has done in your life. I'm amazed how many people have had a moment in their life where they go, God is undeniable. God has come through. He's been amazing in my life. There was a miraculous intervention. How many of you would just acknowledge that there was a moment in your life and went, that was clearly God? Yeah? And, well, I didn't really want to applause because it's the follow-up that matters. And how many of us, after that undeniable moment, have had another moment where you go, God, where are you? God, why are you allowing this to happen to me? God, I thought we were on the same page. We're going up. We're going up. But most of us are actually Buzz Lightyear. We're not flying. We're just falling with style. And it's who you are when you go through the loss that will define you best. To have conversations with people who have homes and cars and jets, and then they lose a little girl to cancer. They have no control over that loss. To have conversations with people who are so successful at work and their jobs and their careers, and then a tragedy strikes that seems so unfair and unexpected, and it's the loss that jars you and shakes you and leaves you dislocated, unbalanced, uncertain about life, where you go, why, God, is this happening to me? And God is comfortable with the 14 in between abundance and loss. And I'm convinced that sometimes life just works out that way. You just invested in the wrong thing or invested in the wrong people, and things happen. But sometimes I think that God strips us. I'm just going to say this. I think God strips us of the things we think make life worth living when we've replaced Him with those things. And He moves us from abundance to loss so that we can finally grapple with what actually matters in life. 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 generations from call to destiny, 14 generations from David to the exile to Babylon, 14 from abundance to loss. And that may be where you're at right now. Maybe you are in the season where you're losing things that have mattered to you so that you can figure out what really matters to you. That's not God abandoning you. That's God taking you on the journey you need to become the person you were always intended to become. Just a little side note. Sometimes God disciplines us by providing us more than we ever thought. It's kind of a beautiful thing. I love that kind of discipline. And sometimes he disciplines us by taking away from us the things we trust and hold on to and value more. And I've just sort of decided in my life, I'd like to be on the other side. I don't want God to have to look at me and go, I need to strip him of one more thing and one more thing and one more thing so he can finally realize what the meaning of life is. But God doesn't care about whether you think you've won or lost. He cares whether you are lost or found. But there's one more 14. 14 from the exile, thank God, to the Messiah. 14 from exile to the Messiah. 14 from the sense of abandonment to adoption. 14 to be on a journey so that we can find our acceptance. 14 so that we can struggle through our sense of aloneness, our sense of disconnection, our sense of displacement, our sense of being dispersed across the world. Have you ever just felt like you haven't found your place? See, I'm convinced there are many of us who are a part of a diaspora, that we've been somehow scattered out into the world and we don't know where our home is. We don't know who our people are. We feel so alone in the crowd, so disconnected from others. And when we watch other people talking and laughing and connecting, and when we see friendships happening and community happening, we don't know what the secret is to get in on that. Because we're there, but we're not there. Now, I'm convinced there are many of you, and this city is a city of diaspora, people who have been displaced from all over the world, searching for something that they don't know what it is, but they know they don't have it. And then you find yourself so alone. How many of you have taken the risk of sitting by yourself and paying attention to your soul and asking yourself, am I drowning in my aloneness? I think that was the greater suffering for Israel, that having lost their nation, having lost their home, having lost their identity, to be displaced, dispersed all over the world, to be among people who did not want them, did not love them. The best they ever got anywhere in the world was to be tolerated, never to be loved. And I think that's where most of us end up. We just give up on the reality of friendships. We just go, this is the best there is. At least I can be alone with other people. And we begin to ask this deeper question: is anyone coming for me? You know, it's been really popular, this phrase, and it was more popular last year than this year. But did you see any of the posts where all these business guys, all these entrepreneurs, all these self-help, personal development guys would say, no one is coming for you? I even saw a pastor post that as he was working, no one is coming for you. And I thought, wow, that's really sad. No one is coming for you. That's what you're being told. How many have heard that phrase? No one is coming for you. I just wonder if I'm the only one who's heard it. See, there's a messaging out in culture. No one is coming for you, and that's why you need to fend for yourself. No one's coming for you, and that's why you got to take care of number one. No one is coming for you, so guess what? If you're trying to help someone, you're the fool. No one's coming for you, so why should you come for anyone? That's what they want to teach us. Take care of yourself because no one cares about you. But I have great news for you. Not only is it wrong that no one is coming for you, someone has already come for you. It just takes that awkward 14. That space in between the 14 generations of your soul. Thank God you don't have to wait 14 generations of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren to be born. But some of you are already in your 14th iteration in your soul. You've trusted in one thing, trusted in another thing, trusted in one person, trusted in another person, trusted in one belief system, then trusted in another belief system, and you're just exhausted. Because you just keep trying different versions of you, trying to save yourself. 14 from the exile, 14 from the abandonment, 14 from the disbursement, 14 from the aloneness, 14 from wondering if you mattered anymore, 14 if anyone saw you. Can you imagine being the people of God dispersed across the world, wondering if God has forgotten them? I want to be a little careful here because I know this goes around the world. But have you ever been around children who are very confused when you happen to move in December of how Santa will find you? How's Santa going to find us? We send him a forwarding address. Don't worry, it's going to be all right. But they're very astute. Well, we're staying in a hotel. We can't go on vacation. We need to be here so Santa can find us at Christmas time. And I think children have a deeper awareness of how hard it is to be lost and how hard it is to be found. I understand the psychological power of people coming together. When Israel was a nation, they had a sense of identity. But when they were dispersed across the world, they had to carry that identity in their soul because they didn't have a people. See, and part of what God is trying to teach us in the 14 is that we're not supposed to do life alone. That he finds us wherever we've been displaced or abandoned. He finds us wherever we are around the world. And I look around this room and I see reflections of people from all over the world. It's incredible how ethnically diverse this community is. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that God found you in South Korea and in North Korea. That God found you in China and Taiwan. That God found you in New Zealand and Australia. That God found you in Kansas and in Oz. That God found you in LA. That God found you in Norwalk and Burbank. That God found you in Glendale and left quickly. But God found you. And even if you are living behind deep gates in Bel Air or Brentwood or Beverly Hills, God can find you anywhere. Because someone not only is coming for you, but someone has come for you. But sometimes we have to learn how to live in the 14. So that 14 is the space in between where I am and where I long to go. That 14 is the space between the pilgrimage and the fulfillment of the promise. That 14 is that distance between the calling and the destiny. It's the struggle between the abundance to the loss. It's the journey. It's the journey from abandonment to adoption, of realizing that God was always going to send his son, because the 14 always ends at the Messiah. 14 from the exile to the Messiah. But do you think they would have been open to the Messiah if the 14 had been from David to the Messiah? Do you think they would have been ready if the 14 had been from Abraham to the Messiah? See, I think God has to take us all on a journey so that our souls are finally ready, our souls are finally open, our souls are finally longing for what only Jesus can bring to us. We've been in the process of moving, and Kim and I have been on this beautiful journey together, and we've been in our home for, 14 years. 14 years in our home. 14 years we were in Hollywood. 14. And our house is full of boxes, and our home is sold, but we have nowhere that we know we're going to buy. And so we're in between. I made the mistake yesterday when Kim and the teams had worked so hard and they'd done so much. I said, it doesn't even look like we made any progress. Yeah, I know. I was an idiot when I said that. And Kim looked at me like fire went through her eyes into my soul. I was consumed by that fire of anger. And but what I was really saying is, wow, it just feels like I'm stuck in the 14. I don't know how to get to the other side of this. And then this truth just erupted on the page. It's not all the packed boxes that are distressing you and all the furniture that is being deconstructed. And it's not even that you're leaving a place you love to a place you don't know. It's that you're not comfortable with the 14. You have to trust me. It's in the 14. I make you the best version of you. And this is the journey Jesus invites you on right now. It's not from beginning point to end point. I wish it were. It's not from A to Z, skipping all the B's and Q's and Z's. It's God inviting you on a journey where you live in the 14, but you trust God that He is doing the work in you that can only be done in the in-between. So if you're here today and maybe someone has convinced you no one is coming for you, I want you to hear that someone has already come. If you're here in this moment, you feel like you've lost so much and you're wondering where God is, I want you to know that God is in that loss, ready to meet you, to take you on the next part of the journey. If you're here in this moment and you do have a sense of call, that you know your life matters, you know that you're created to do something significant with your life, I want you to know that that's placed in you, that's implanted into your soul by God, because your life matters to Him. And I look at Jesus and I'm reminded that God took His time to step into our history at exactly the right time. And maybe that's where you're at right now. That God has taken His time to get you exactly where you need to be, to come to Him and to know Him completely. Would you bow your heads with me just for a moment? Just close your eyes. 2,000 years ago, God stepped into human history in the person of Jesus. He lived a sinless and perfect life. He was not guilty of any crime or any sin, and yet He was crucified as a criminal on our behalf, so that through His act of love and sacrifice, we could have forgiveness and freedom. In a very real sense, Jesus stood in the 14, dying for us so that we could live, sacrificing Himself so that we could have forgiveness and freedom. He's waiting for the fulfillment of that promise, waiting for you to invite Him into your life. And if you're here in this moment and you've never crossed the line of faith, you've never invited Jesus into your life to be your Lord and Savior, I want to invite you in this moment just to pray a simple prayer. Jesus, I give you my life. Right now, just in the privacy of this moment, just tell him, Jesus, I give you my life. If this is your prayer, I want to pray for you. If you just whispered this prayer, Jesus, I give you my life, would you just hold up your hand high so I can see you? Beautiful. Anyone else? Beautiful. Wonderful. Anyone else? Beautiful. I see you in the balcony. Anyone else? Father, I thank you for each person who's opened up their life to you. I pray, God, that you would just wrap them up in your love and let them know that they belong to you. That this is that perfect moment where you have heard their prayer and you've come to them. That you've forgiven them of all their sin. That you've freed them to live life fully. We thank you, Jesus, that you step into the 14, the space in between. You meet us here and take us where we cannot go without you. We pray in your name. Amen. Can we just thank God for all those who respond to him today? Andy, would you come up? All right, we're about ready to start celebrating Christmas. Next week, we're going to be decorating this whole place. We're going to go crazy. Anybody love Christmas? You cannot over-decorate. You cannot over-decorate for Christmas, so get ready. It's going to go wild. Andy, lead us out.
So beautiful. Hasn't today been incredible, Mosaic? It's been an incredible Sunday. I was just reminiscing with Pastor Carlos and Miosotti. It was exactly 14 years ago that Carlos, myself, and Miosotti moved from Puerto Rico to Los Angeles. And it's beautiful to know that God is continuing to move us forward into new seasons, new eras. And one of the fruits of that is just seeing the people that have raised their hands to say yes to Jesus in this moment. And if that was you, we have a gift for you. We have a Bible we want to give to you for free. We just want to get to know you. We just want to connect with you. We want you to meet us in the lobby area, in the Next Step area, so that we can journey alongside you. If you made that decision today, or if you've made that decision over the past few weeks, we want to get to know you. We also have a space for you that we mentioned earlier. Welcome to Mosaic. Up in the mezzanine area, Pastor David Arcos is going to be there to connect with you, to connect you with community, so that you can step into a new chapter alongside Mosaic, alongside what we're building.